Hey guys, D1scos here, and welcome to the spoiler review of Dune Part 1. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, there's a lot to unpack here. I still think it's a super good movie. There's a lot happening though. It's very story driven, there's not a whole lot of action in this one. I guess that's something because during the spoiler free review, but whatever. Didn't think about it. Um, but basically, this movie starts off as Paul, and I honestly don't remember what he was doing, but it starts off as Paul. He's on his home planet, and he's like, I think he's talking to his dad or somebody. Um, I don't really remember, but like, you did meet his dad and his mom shortly after. His mom ends up taking him to see the Reverend Mother, and the Reverend Mother is a very important position. I've noticed. It seems like most kingdoms, at least the different groups of people that I've seen in part one and part two have a Reverend Mother. They seem so the Reverend Mother is honestly it's sort of a little bit in a way like a priest if you want a real life equivalent, except unlike a priest who like spits all the you know religious stuff. So they don't really seem to do that because Reverend Mothers seem to be religious figures, just like a pope is, or just like the pope or the priest or a bishop, archbishop, priestess, nuns, Jesuits. This movie has the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm realizing just how much the religious system in this movie, somewhat to some extent, all just is kind of looks like the Catholic Church. Not fully, but because like the Reformed Mothers, you could argue are kind of like popes, and then there are individuals under the Reverend Mother who, and then and then there's like a whole thing with them where they want girls because girls continue the bloodline, and that's important for some reason. That part I never really I still don't fully understand, but that's besides the point. Anyway, so part one here, when Paul meets with the Reverend Mother wants him to tell her about like his dreams, but they do it in such a way where it kind of I don't it's some religious thing where they have this box and you put your right hand in it, and then you just stand there with your hand in this box, and they put their hand, and the Reverend Mother, I forget, they have one hand holding a like poison needle that will kill you, um, and they put it very close to your neck, and then the whole idea or point is that you're not supposed to like panic like a the example is like an animal where like they kind of panic. You're not supposed to do that. Paul starts screaming. Paul, from what I remember, he starts like screaming, and then the Reverend Mother says like stop screaming, or she says something about it, and then he kind of stops. Um, because like Paul's dreams are like visions, right? He's seeing visions, so that's why she does this. Anyways, he comes back fine, but the Reverend Mother and some other characters, they're kind of in this movie are kind of realizing Paul is more than just a duke. That honestly doesn't really get explained in this movie much. It's like a very huge plot line of part two though, but not really part. Well, it is in part one, but towards the end, it's good, but it's kind of slow pacing, but it's kind of not because it's just story, 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 story. It's very hard. You don't really get a break from the story or like a moment to rest. It's just punching you in the face with story. It's kind of cool though. But yeah, so basically, like one of the visions Paul was seeing was his mother is pregnant with a daughter, and the Reverend Mother, like, but the Reverend Mother is leaving, is talking to Paul's mom and is basically telling her that she kind of disgraced the bloodline a little bit by having a boy, but that he might be the chosen one and all this stuff. And then, oh yeah, and then so um, Paul and his family end up going to that sandy planet. I wish I could remember the flipping name of it. Acadi, Acadus, Akari, Ac- Acadian. Is that the name of it? The Acadian Empire. I don't remember hearing about this. Okay, I'll have to research the Acadian. Okay, I'm gonna research the Acadian Empire later, so I'm just gonna keep that tab on. There's hell, there's fate. Okay. Dune. Oh, dang, right. Dune. Sad. Planet. There we go. Arrakis. Arrakis. Arrakis is a harsh, arid planet covered almost entirely in deserts filled with rock formations and sand dunes. These rolling mounts are what get the eponymous dune its name, with Arrakis topography providing much of dunes near the setting and a nickname for the planet. Yeah, so basically, there's a ton. This movie mostly takes place on Arrakis rather than whatever his home planet is from. I don't remember. Part two takes place completely on Arrakis. But yeah, so basically, at one point, Duncan's going to be sent out on a scout team. They're going to scout out Arrakis, and then sometime a little bit later, Paul, his dad, and like others from like Acadia, and others from Acadia are going to come. So, anyways, when they do get there, they meet this lady who was very nice, and she had super blue eyes. That's something that I've noticed is like every character, maybe not every character, but a lot of characters in this movie have, most of the characters have like very blue eyes. Well, except for the character that they kind of introduced as the villain, because he's got like black eyes, like just pitch black eyes. We'll get that. But anyways, so they arrive on Arrakis solely because they want to, um, solely for spice. Spice is a incredibly important resource. So, um, Acadia has some Acadia has some control there because they have such an important resource. From my understanding, spice like prolongs your life and it does something else. You can also put it on food, just like real life spice. You can, and then, oh yeah, and then it also like makes you see. It makes you see things. It's said to also like make you see things clearer. Like it kind of makes you see some stuff. Um, and it kind of seems like maybe you can like it can help you. I don't know like exactly how the seeing thing works, but it like lets you see like foresee more things or something like that. That part of its effects I'm still not entirely 100% positive on. But anyway, so they get there, they talk to a guy, what was his name? Sakari, Sajik, I don't remember. They talk to a guy who lives on Arrakis and about like the about this place, and then at one point they go to like see one of those like like one of their things that's like on Iraq is getting them spice. It's some like it's got like tank treads, but then it's got like these like blade, but then it's got like I think like a drill on it, and it's like a little ball thing. It's weird. There's a bunch of there's like there as we're going there, there's a bunch of sandworms that show up because sandworms are a creature that are on this planet. Um, Sink the giant worm from that one SpongeBob episode that Sandy like wrestles and ties his tongue into a knot. Except instead of like a tongue like that, it's just millions of teeth, hundreds of billions of teeth. There's kind of a real life equivalent to this thing, I swear, but it's a giant worm. Well, they vary in size. The adult worms are huge, and you can see inside its mouth, and it's just a ton of like teeth, and then there's like a part in it that like can be open and closed, and it just it's a bunch of there's a being a bunch of them, and some of those like four winged ship things end up like getting destroyed by them, and then Paul ends up like making sure that some workers can get onto the ship safely before the sandworm destroys it. Paul almost dies, but that's whatever. Duncan saves him, anyways. But like, the reason why Duncan sort of had to save him was because Paul was having dreams and seeing visions of like of So then when they get back to I don't know if Acadia or whatever their planet was called. Polytreus. Am I calling it Polytradia? I apologize. Anyways, Paul ends up talking to his mom about it later, and telling his mom all these things, like how he knows that, like telling her about the visions basically, and he brings up that like the last vision he mentions was that his mom is. He was like, "I know you're pregnant" or something like that, and his mom is just like, his mom immediately is asking questions. She's immediately just, "How do you know about that?" It happened like a few weeks ago, and you honestly, I don't know why I yawn so much in videos all of a sudden. But like she very much like does not look pregnant. You can tell she's very early on, um, in the in pregnancy. Like she's very early on in it, and she's like having to kind of listen to all of this, and she's a little confused, obviously. Um, their dad had, and then Paul's dad ends up like making her promise to keep care of him. Paul's dad gets like sees someone injured, goes to like help them, and then he gets injured by their doctor. Basically, the villain. Um, I know Baron is a part of his name, but then there's like a bunch of other stuff. But Baron basically um, told the doctor that the Atreus family has, like that if he does this, then he will be, then his wife will be set free, basically. And the doctor promises the king like later they kind of do like this movie is full of like doing the of having like shots of different things happening at the same time, because like before you even hear hear like really what the some of the stuff the doctor says to the king, it like cuts to like the like evil forces basically, and there's just like a bunch of guys just standing around like, and there's like some other guys walking around putting some stuff on their face, and there's like a bunch of commotion because they're like basically going to attack the planet. Not Americans, but the planet that Paul and his family like live on. That's what happens. So when it comes back to the doctor, they're already like storming the palace basically. These enemy forces, and the doctor promises he's gonna take care of Paul and all this stuff. And then Paul and his mom end up getting kidnapped. Duncan tries to like find and save them, and that doesn't work out because they're already gone. But Paul is such or Duncan, not Paul. Paul is or Duncan is such a fucking badass in this movie. Oh my god, Duncan is great. Duncan beats up a couple guys. Duncan kills a couple soldiers and steals one of their like plane things. That's one of the ones with the four wings. And there's this massive ship. At least I remember it being a ship. There's just this massive thing that the enemy has, and it shoots fucking lasers. And by shoots fucking lasers, I don't mean Star Wars. I mean a continuous fucking laser that can destroy mountains and shit. Doesn't matter what it is, that laser is cutting through it. And it's ginormous. Like, it's ginormous. A ginormous laser. And Duncan, being the badass that he is, flies through it, no problem, right? He flies through the planet and the thing and avoids all of its attacks and stuff. Oh, yes, basically, before the attack happens, just so you guys know, like, after the scene with the enemy guys, there's, like, there's, like, just some stuff that happens with, like, the palace. Like, I believe Paul's mom and dad were just talking about some stuff. Something like that. Basically, Paul, I guess, hasn't been acting normal after he saw the Reverend Mother, and just kind of making sure. So the dad just wanted to make sure he would be okay, because the death kind of seemingly knew he was about to die or something. I don't know. Oh yeah, but I already mentioned that. Well, so somewhat. Anyways, so Duncan basically and all the other guys stay like an explosion or something happens that alerts them to the presence of the enemy. So then it turns into a whole battle. Yeah. We're back to where we were. So it cuts back to Paul and his mom, and they are captured by some enemy forces, and they're really weird. They have like this very bizarre looking armor where it's like fully covering, but then you can like, but then you can like smash the glass in the helmet and stuff. And these guys are bald. They're bald, which is interesting. Like all of them are, and they're completely like white. And I don't mean like white as in like white, like the skin color white, like Paul. I mean pure white. These guys are pure white. Like their skins are full on white. Like if like if you're looking at the video right now, you see how and you see like the search engine is like all white, like the search bar. They're like that white. With like black eyeball, with completely black pupils, and like black teeth and stuff, and like there's like black around the eyes and stuff. There's some black, but it's mostly white. Anyways, so there's some sort of so they're captured and Paul's mom is like gagged, so he can't talk, and Paul's there seems to be some sort of sign language in this movie, like in this world, because Paul's mom is telling him some stuff via sign language, like one hand, and then basically telling him that one guy was deaf and stuff like that. And that's important because Paul and his mom have, at least Paul and his mom, I have yet to see any other character use the ability, if anyone else has it. But they have seemingly some ability where they can change their pitch of voice basically to sound super demonic. Um, it's very obvious that it's like After Effect, like they just added it in post, changed the pitch of the voice for these, but still. So Paul is trying to help his mother, and Paul's being a dumbass and is not succeeding at all because he's not really like seemingly trying to change his pitch or anything. So Paul gets beat up. So like one of the enemy guys is like punching him in the gut multiple times because of it. Eventually, Paul does change like his tone of voice, which results in the deaf enemy dying and the mom getting like getting her gag off, which basically means that she then saves Paul and her lives, basically. And then the enemy shuts down the ship that they were on, like immediately after they took care of that problem. They like freed themselves of the ropes, and then Paul and his mom are living on Arrakis now. They get a little. They like in this like massive like sand like dune. They put this seemingly tent thing in there, and they're just like living in some massive sand dune, like trying to figure out their game plan basically. And they come to a plan. They're going to try to find the Freemen, and the Freemen are the inhabitants of Arrakis. You see like quite a few of them. So they go on this journey, which doesn't go super swimmingly because they go on this long journey. There's like a sand worm that almost kills them at one point, but but one of the Freeman's uses what is called a thumper, which is like a device where you like put in the sand and then like it goes like and then it like opens up and slams in on itself, and it like makes a frequency to deal with like the sandworms. So it usually goes like do do, but then after like this free deuce, it's then like do, like it goes much faster. And that was kind of an intense and somewhat terrifying moment because Paul and his mom are staring at this sandworm that just isn't doing anything. So the sandworm is completely out of the sand. With like all of its teeth. It's like hundreds of thousands of teeth. Oh my god. It's just looking at them, not moving. Like this giant mouth thing. It's just not, just looking at them, not doing anything. Eventually it goes and leaves seemingly because of the thumper. And then, Paul and his mom continue their journey. They eventually find the Freeman. Well, one of them's the guy from earlier that Paul's dad was talking to at one point. So they talk to them. Oh, yeah, I completely skipped over the thing, but shortly after they get on the planet, sorry, I'm kind of scatterbrains. They actually run into Duncan because he flew his ship to Arrakis as well and ended up like finding them somewhere. I don't really remember where. And then they all go to and then I forget how, but they find the home of. They find this girl that they talked to earlier in the movie. And then as they're talking there, Duncan like knows something is wrong. So like, because some of the enemy forces come in, and this is where Duncan truly shines as a fucking badass. The other for Paula's mom and this other girl are like they're kind of in the room like trying to figure out their escape because they were like talking about something like about the Emperor a little bit and some other things. And Duncan is just going fucking ham. Duncan is beating the fuck out of multiple people. Duncan got like stabbed like completely through by a blade, and he pretended dead and then proceeded to kill a few more. They did eventually seemingly kill Duncan, but he was a fucking badass. He took so many of them out before he died. And then, and then the girl that was with, and then so Paul and his mom ended up taking this like ship thing out. and they end up like flying into a sandstorm. The other girl tries to call a sandworm to escape on because people can do that. But there's three enemies that Duncan didn't that Duncan was not able to kill, who ambush her and like stab her, and then instead of like dying or whatever, she got a sandworm to appear directly under the three soldiers, and that was also under her. So she seemingly died trying to deal with them, like defeat them. And then Paul, and his mom end up like traveling and stuff. Duncan's or Paul's dad is actually alive for some of this. Paul's dad is like completely well, not fully frozen, because he can talk. Well, not really talk because he's like dying, but he can kind of speak. And he's like basically just floating at this table, and that's where Baron is. Baron is a big dude because not only is he tall, but he's got but because not only is he tall, but he is pretty chubby, and he is like eating a ton of food. And there's like some soldiers in the room. That doctor eventually comes into the room, asking about like his wife being freed, all that stuff, and apparently Baron had like already killed his mom, so then Baron just like slits the doctor's throat open basically, and then it's like standing by Paul's dad and is talking to him about something, and then Paul's dad like says something but not really. So then, in case if he does any tricks, Baron like turns on the like shield device, and then gets up close to him, and then that's when Paul's dad breaks open that like this fake tooth that the doctor put in like right after he shot him with the needle thing, because it like lets out some like poison that will like not only kill Paul's dad but kill like all the basically everyone in the room. Somehow it doesn't kill the Baron though. Somehow we'll get to that, because like then like Paul and his mom are like traveling the planet more, and that's anyways. It turns into like a whole fight, and then this guy named Jameis is wanting to challenge Paul's mom to like combat because Paul's mom like hit their leader. So then Paul ends up having to fight him because Paul was like seen as like his champion, as like his mom's champion. Paul thinks it's like a battle of like making the other person like whoever like win. Paul doesn't know it's like to the death, so he's trying to get the guy to like. So he says something about like, do you yield? Like the first time he gets his like weapon to the guy's throat. And the guy that Paul met earlier from this group informed him that it's to the death. So then Paul like another time basically same thing, but then Paul eventually stabs Jameis, and Jameis dies. Basically, Jameis's death could have been avoided if Jameis wasn't so like, like whatever about the whole situation with with Paul's mom like beating their leader. That turned into a whole thing, but then they like start traveling after that. They like body up Jameis and they start traveling. That's where the first movie ends. Something that I didn't mention because I honestly don't remember like exactly when it happened, but sometime after the meeting that like the scene with Baron like eating the food at the table and Paul's dad like being stuck, like floating or whatever. Some people end up coming into the room at some point a little later in the movie, like sometime a little later after that scene. They find the Baron on the ceiling like floating because they have like these devices that kind of let them fly, but seemingly only for a short amount of time. And So then, like, there's a scene even later in the movie where, like, sometime after that, where the Baron is in this like bath thing. It kind of looks like a hot tub. Not gonna lie, it's like this big rectangle that's got. It's like this big square like rectangle thing that's got like a bunch of stuff in it. Um, and that stuff is apparently healing him. And he's like completely submerged in it. And so, this individual walks in, like one of the seemingly a high soldier in Baron, and like the evil army comes in and is like talking to Baron about like his plan to deal with all this, and the Baron is of course like impressed, and like tells him like to, like get rid of whatever. And yeah, that is the first movie. Dune Part 1 anyways. There's these other Dune movies and they're seemingly like a shell, but this is, part 1. It's very confusing. Like, I'm sure me trying to explain it was also hella confusing because it's just hella confusing in general. But I hope I explained it somewhat well. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the spoiler review of this movie. I really did enjoy it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, ring the bell. Do all the algorithmic garbage. It helps out a lot. It means a lot to us. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. Bye.